it's Ennis's backyard, but it's also Whitehall's backyard. It's Twin Bridges' backyard. So this mountain range is north-south, generally north-south mountain range, and it's rugged. It's there. You're not going up in there unless you really have to spend some effort to get in there.
And I've moved around a bunch. One of the coolest places I've lived in was New Zealand.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a fun year. And but I've bounced around to Pennsylvania, LA, Oregon. So kind of traveled a bit, and then I love Montana. I always will.
Welcome to Montana Whiskey, Wealth, and Freedom.
Well, I'm betting in love. I've been on the ground, I've gotten back on my feet, just to fall back down on my knees for you and your whiskey under the bridge.
Welcome to the Whiskey, Wealth, and Freedom Show. Here's how we're going to kick it off today. We're going to do things a little different because I'm constantly changing things up, trying to find the secret ingredient here, the secret recipe. So for years, you've been told that a paid-off mortgage is the ultimate sign of financial freedom. What if I told you that owning your home, quote-unquote, free and clear, might actually be the riskiest financial move you ever make? By the end of the show, we'll have a clear understanding of what that means. So that's the opening statement. So we're going to end up having a conversation about that with Karen, and then hopefully by the end of the show we'll have a clearer answer as to why that is the case. But before we do that, we're going to do quick intros. Glenn, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
You are a shift lead.
Production stooge
with
head broom pusher
with Willie's Distillery out of Ennis, Montana. Please share one personal thing and one professional thing that you would like people to know about you.
Well, I live in Whitehall, Montana, and I don't know. I work at Willie's. That's my personal thing. And my professional thing is I work at Willie's.
You know the right end of the broom to use.
Right, yeah. No, I'm just kind of a do-it-yourselfer kind of person, and making what once was a hobby of making beer turned into a profession of making spirits.
How long have you lived in Whitehall for?
I've been in Whitehall since 2013. I've been in Montana since 2007 when I got my bachelor's degree from MSU.
Oh, nice. What was your bachelor's?
Nursing.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Oh, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Glenn is a man of many talents. He has a background, quite a diverse background in basically everything that you've done in your career has been saving other people.
Yeah, I started as a firefighter, EMT, volunteer.
Yeah.
Progressed to the Army as a medic, and then that progressed to nursing, and then
oh man, yeah, that's
kind of done with the medical field and decided to do something else.
Well, you're still helping people.
Yeah,
just another way.
It's very science based,
Yeah, it's perfect. It's a good fit. Great. Well, thank you for coming in today. And then Chris Curry, new to the show.
New. Chris,
you are. I don't actually know, what is the name of your company.
I'm just under my own name right now, so I haven't branched out or created like LLCs yet.
Can you make the name of your company The Life of Curry?
I mean, I do business as The Life of Curry
because I
do love that.
Freaking love it.
I made it my email one time, like I don't know, 10 years ago, and I get compliments on it, so it's like I do like that.
You have to.
But then there's almost a sense of like, if the plan was to build a business and then to try to sell it off, then all of a sudden the name, it would be harder to sell something like that off, I would think.
So you have a professional editing company. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's more than just editing. How would you like to describe your company or your business?
Yeah, so I do editing and videography. So I do the whole, from the camera side all the way to the producing it side and putting it out, and music, all the whole works of creating a little video. I do that ads to that for small businesses.
Great.
Yeah.
And you're out of Butte, Montana.
And I'm out of Butte, Montana, but soon to be Bozeman. I'm moving over to Bozeman.
I'm gonna be closer to the woman, huh?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Very good. And then, of course, to my left, Karen Goff. Personal thing. I guess we've already kind of covered this, but one personal thing, one professional thing that you would like to share about yourself.
Personal thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess the moving side. I hope to share some more personal things as we go along on the podcast, but. Yeah, moving around. I've moved around a bunch. One of the coolest places I've lived in was New Zealand.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a fun year, and but I've bounced around to Pennsylvania, L.A., Oregon. So kind of traveled a bit, and then kind of. I love Montana. I always will. Mm-hmm. I was always proud to tell people I was from Montana, and so often they're like, "Oh, you're the first Montanan I've ever met." So it was kind of fun to have that. But yeah, just traveling around is what I love to do.
Excellent. All right, honey. Your turn. Introduce yourself. Everybody knows you, but for those of you that don't.
Yeah, I mean, I am a mortgage advisor by trade, but a professional thing would be that because the mortgage industry, to me, you're buying your largest asset and what's going to be your biggest debt, and it's important to do it right. And so I became a faculty member of the National Institute of Financial Education and a certified liability advisor through them. Personal thing, I am horse crazy and have been my entire life.
I can actually verify that. When you hear the expression horse crazy girl, her picture's in the dictionary. All right, so now that we've gotten through intros, let's get into let's have a whiskey moment. Let's talk about the product of the month. Sitting on the table here in front of us, we've got the 3 products that are being promoted for the first quarter of 2026. We've already done the Million Acre Bourbon when Willie was in January. Today we are doing the Tobacco Root Mountain Rye, which is fortunately why Glenn was able to join us again. 1 N or 2? Do you have? Is it?
It's 1.
It's 1 N. Okay.
There is a difference, so like a regional difference. I just don't know what it is.
With Glenn?
Yeah, with 2 N's versus 1 N.
As far as where Scotland,
the name Scotland, Ireland, Wales, I think.
Because I keep doing your name each way, and every time I do it, I never know which is right, so I just keep going back and forth.
Short and simple.
I do get the S on the end of straw, though. Mm-hmm. Straws.
Yeah, many, more than one.
Okay. 1 N, many straws.
That's right.
That's your Indian name.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, like I said, I there's a difference. There's if you're from this region, they spelt it with 2 N's.
Yeah.
If you're from this area, they spelt it with 1. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I can Google it.
No, it's okay. It's it was more for my own curiosity, and I wanted to do it correctly.
I look it up every once in a while because people ask me, and then I forget what the real reason, and then the next time someone asks me, I have to look it up again.
Well, you can bet your bippy next time you come in, I'm gonna know. All right, so let's talk about the Tobacco Root Mountain Rye. Oh, the third one is the Devil's Brigade. That one's going to be promoted in March. That's the March product. Willie's coming back in to do that show.
That's a good one.
Again. Yeah, that's a fun one.
That's an important one to him.
Totally, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a good show. But for the Tobacco Root Mountain Rye, that's what we're drinking. We all have some product in our glasses, and I want to get first impressions.
It's so good. Yeah, I'm normally, honestly, just to put it out there, and I usually have to mix like Coke or Pepsi, I'm that kind of hard, but I'm just drinking. I'm like, it's so smooth. It's really good. So I'm like, I'm actually kind of blown away by how good it tastes.
Karen, what do you think of it?
I really do like it. I have to say, I had started to discover that I'm a rye person because I really appreciated the spicy notes in your bourbon and, of course, the Stockman's rye. Yep. And, I actually I love that spice note of rye. Yeah,
so kind of goes back to our Stockman's conversation a little bit. Rye whiskey was kind of known as Canadian whiskey, even though that's not how they make it now. Because rye grew better in the northern latitudes, and that's kind of the folklore behind rye whiskey. But this whiskey is like 90% rye and 10% barley.
No corn?
No corn. So it's all a malt. It's all malted grain. Well, I guess corn's a grain, but it's malted rye and malted barley. And it just, For some reason, it finishes out really smooth, and the oak barrels, fresh American oak barrel aging process, really lends itself to that rye. For some reason, I don't know.
So do you still age it like you do the bourbon in a clean, fresh barrel?
Correct. Yeah.
Why? So I'm looking at the label. The Tobacco Root Mountains, considered our town's backyard, are known for their rugged peaks and clear alpine lakes, accessible only part of the year. The lakes, that is, and the peaks. We thought it fitting to name a seasonal spirit after them. So why is it seasonal? How does
it started as a seasonal. Now it's kind of a year-round thing.
Okay.
It's available year-round in our tasting room. And it started as seasonal because the tobacco roots, if the geography of, it's Ennis's backyard, but it's also Whitehall's backyard. It's Twin Bridges' backyard. So this mountain range is north-south, generally north-south mountain range, and it's rugged. It's there. You're not going up in there unless you really have to spend some effort to get in there. And they're tough mountains. They really are. So,
speaking from personal experience?
Yes, both hunting and just accessing the tobacco roots. They're tough mountains.
Very rocky, right?
Yep. Very steep. Yep. Just rugged. And there's several mountains like Manhead Mountain, Hollow Top Mountain, they're just beautiful mountains.
Yeah.
And so Ennis is fortunate enough to have a really cool area like the tobacco roots, the tea roots.
Yeah.
And so they named their rye whiskey after it. Seasonal being like, because they get so much snow and they're so tough in the winter, you just don't go up in the winter. And so that started as a seasonal whiskey that they kind of really only wanted out because of production limitations when they first started. They only had it out at certain points of the year.
And it was chosen as winter was the release of that as the seasonal?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. I don't know. I would imagine it would have been a summer.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was surprised when it came up in rotation for this month, for the month of February.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
They've since increased their production and been able to carry it in the tasting room year round. They did a one-time limited distribution 6 months ago, where they pushed it out to the state, and the state liquor stores and bars could carry it for a short amount of time. But it was really only, 2,700 bottles that went out. So, yeah.
I didn't get a chance to comment on it, but I have to tell you, honestly, I anticipated not really being very fond of it because I just don't think that I'm particularly... I've had some bad experiences with like real rye.
Yeah.
I used to go up when I was playing football at Rocky Mountain College. I had a lot of Canadian buddies, and we used to go up to Calgary and drink a little too much rye, and I had one too many, bad evenings. And so I just never really thought that an honest to goodness rye would be something that would appeal to me. But I mean, there hasn't actually been a Willie's product yet that I haven't enjoyed. And this one actually has surprised me probably the most. It's really good. And honestly, if I had to choose between this and the Stockman rye, I don't even know if I could choose. I really enjoy them both almost equally the same.
This is my number one of our lineup, with the bourbon being a close second, and then Devil's Grade being the third of my favorites that we produce at Willie's. Yep. That's
good to know. Okay.
Yeah. And I just like the spiciness of it.
Yeah.
But it's also, it has some smoothness to it.
I'm glad I said that word.
Yeah. It's, and I encourage everybody who doesn't necessarily drink straight spirits, if you'd like to try, put some water in it, cut it down a little bit. That cuts the alcohol down a bit and then brings the flavors out. You don't have to put a lot.
I assume that's what the
that's
the
part
ice
of why, ice. Yeah. And cooling the temperature down a little bit changes your perception of the drink. And that goes along with, no one drinks warm beer for a reason, right? Like cold beer. So this is the same kind of thing if you're drinking spirits. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've already shared or touched on a little bit. Are there any specific stories around the product, around the development of the product, the idea behind the product, the branding of the product that you feel like that people
how they came up with the mash?
Well, Willie said we need to make a rye whiskey, right?
Okay.
That's kind of what he wanted. That's one of the things he really wanted. And you got to name it after something,
Sure.
Right? You can't just say rye whiskey. You can, I guess that's the name. But yeah, they're just going with the themes of what's local and what's around Ennis, and the Tobacco Roots was the perfect theme. I think the name works really well. Tobacco Root Rye. Yeah. I think it's a great name. It fits it. It's, you know.
Do you guys all get together to name something? Or
No,
is
it's
it
generally the managing crew,
Okay.
sales crew. You know, those are sales questions that you need to ask yourself. What's your product line gonna be named? And so you ask the experts, and that's the salespeople.
Yeah.
Is that a typical mash bill of the amounts of?
I
the rye
imagine,
versus
you know,
barley?
you can change it up a little bit, put a little bit of wheat in there, but I think I'm not exactly sure on the rules. I didn't look up the rules of rye, but I'm pretty sure you'd have to have like a 51% rye in order to call it a rye. But it classifies as a whiskey, so it has to follow the whiskey rules. So the grains, you know, spirits made from grains, fermented grains. And then, you know, if you want to call it a rye, you should probably put the majority of a rye in there, right? But I'm sure there are other companies out there who are using wheat or oats or barley, more barley than what we use. Yeah. And still calling it a rye. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, the one of the things that we talked about at some length with the Stockman's Rye back in September, I think it was its connection of the whole, it's like a hat tip to the Prohibition era.
Right.
So just out of curiosity, what was there does this one kind of fall in the same line of that same kind of hat tip, or was it specifically just the Stockman's Rye that you decided to do that for, and why?
So I think that was more of a specific to Stockman's. And Stockman's is rye, this whiskey with Canadian, kind of like similar along the lines of the Devil's Brigade is American bourbon with Canadian. So that blend, I think they specifically wanted to do the Prohibition kind of thing, and the Montana history behind Prohibition. And at one point, Montana was the largest importer of Canadian spirits. So during Prohibition, and Montana was also the first state to go dry. It was also the first state to go back, to go wet.
So it went dry in 1916. Prohibition wasn't until 1918.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it was like 24 or 26, and then Prohibition was repealed in 28.
I think 33.
33. Yeah. So Montana became one of the first states to just stop enforcing Prohibition.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of at the governor level, basically telling all the sheriffs, don't do Prohibition. We don't care. We're done. We're over this. So, yeah.
Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting in the little bit of research that I did was I didn't appreciate that the state of Montana, it wasn't until I think like 2000 that legislation was passed that allowed craft distilleries to even operate in the first place.
Right.
So things shut down, you know, I mean, so the rye market, because that was the predominant drink, you know, kind of in that Prohibition era, like you're discussing. And then, you know, and then when it came back online, so to speak, after the end of Prohibition, the whole industry shifted towards bourbon. I don't know why. Do you know why?
Probably had a lot to do with what they could get their hands on. Corn was probably really cheap.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, you look at kind of where things came, like the history of spirits in general. Scotland makes Scotch because they have peat and they needed something to dry out their barley and properly kiln it. And then they made Scotch. And then, you know, several hundred years of making Scotch, and all of a sudden now they have a regional thing, right? Because they use peat to smoke their grains in the kilning and malting process, and that created Scotch. And it's because it's what they had. Literally because they had peat. They had lots of it. Not
That's
a whole
where the
lot.
smoky flavor comes from in that Scotch.
Right. Not a whole lot of forest to cut down in Scotland.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you guys are like looking to make a new product, I imagine, is there like smaller levels of production? So you make only a few, like a barrel, or how does it start from like, oh, we have an idea to, eventually it gets like more mass produced?
Well, that's a good story. That's a good thing because single malt, right? Single malt's kind of the new craze, and was a new craze. So American single malt is basically the American version of Scotch. So it's a single malt, literally meaning it's made from barley. That's all you can use. But the rules on it, on what you can do as far as the barrel aging and all that stuff, are pretty loose. So you can do a lot with just one grain. And so we, as you know, my production manager, myself, and the general manager, we want to do a single malt. So they said, "Hey, Glenn, why don't you design a recipe?"
Cool.
So
that's cool.
Then I did 3 batches. They're all in the test lab. 3 small batches. Very small, like 1 gallon size. We decided I did 3 different iterations using different barleys, and I found one that I like and one that everybody else likes. And now next month in March, we're going to actually bring it to production full scale.
Oh, that's got to be a cool
So we're going to do a month-long run, which will probably be around 18 to 20, 30-gallon barrels. We're going to fill those barrels. We're going to put them in the corner for a couple of years and see what happens. Yeah. So that's how a new product came about.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. But I like how you get to be part of that.
Right. That is really cool. That I get to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Kind of spearheaded the iterations. Then we picked the flavor that we want. We knew what we wanted it to taste like kind of going in. So I had like a base recipe in my head that I wanted to use. And then I just did 3 variations of that base recipe to see which one would turn out better. So there's some trial and error. There is some intelligent design behind that. Like you can tailor a drink to, just like you can tailor a cake or a pie based on your ingredients, right? So that's kind of what I did. And then, do I use less cherries in my cherry pie, or do I use less raspberries in my berry pie and use more blueberries, kind of thing, So that's kind of how I did it with a spirit. That's kind of how you do it with the spirit.
And do you do that like on, like at home too? Are you like a home brewer as well? Or
yeah, so when you design a beer, there's style guidelines behind, just like there's style guidelines behind vodka, behind bourbon, behind single malt. So you follow those style guidelines, but there's still lots of room in between the guidelines to work with. Yeah.
It's interesting, Chris, you asked him that question because it's a good question about how do you come up with a new product and one of the things that we talked about at some length with Willie when we did the show, the Million Acre Bourbon show, was I was talking to him about kind of comparing the craft distillery industry with the corporate distillery industry and how 2025 saw a historic, I don't know if it's historic low, but a low consumption level in the spirits industry or marketplace since as low as it's been since the 90s. And so that seemed that things have just kind of been cooling off in the industry, and that one of the things that's done to the corporate distillers is it's really hurt them financially because they have a very set business model, right? They build product for scale and inconsistency. So they make all this mass product, they lock themselves into all of this overhead, all of this expense, and then they rely on global distribution in order to recoup all of that
Correct,
cost,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
And when things kind of, they had a little bit of a perfect storm between, the possibly, there's some tariffs had some impact on it, and the fact that the younger generations are just drinking less, and there was a few other things that went into the lending rules and the bank terms. Those changed because financing got tightened up. So it was just kind of like this perfect storm, and the corporate distillers had themselves sort of like in a little bit of a hard spot. And the cool thing about being a craft distiller is you can actually duck and dodge and weave and kind of have that sort of that flexibility and that nimbleness to circumvent some of those exposures and some of that liability that the corporate distillers have. And what comes with that is the ability to be a little bit more inventive and creative and not be so stuck into a sort of a business model that forces you into scale, but you're more of a quality distribution over quantity distribution. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on it?
So my thoughts about the overall decline in the spirit industry, Seattle's probably drinking less. New York's probably drinking less. Atlanta. Is Montana drinking less? Right? So probably a little bit, but if you have a decline in sales, if you're a big Jack Daniel's Jim Beam person, that you're going to feel that decline more in the big cities. You may feel that decline in Montana, for example, but it's probably not as pronounced. So as a craft distillery brewery in Montana, and who else doesn't stop drinking?
Wisconsin?
Young people, college people, military people. That's like a thing, right? Like, so as a craft distilling, maybe get focused more on the college and what the college kids want to drink. I tell you, Huck vodka goes up a lot when college is back in, right? Like, that's just a thing.
Yeah.
And Huck vodka goes up a lot in the summer. That's just a thing.
Well, what can be done, I think, like, because we get to experience all these great products up through the show, and one of our objectives is to really help raise awareness and get more attention to the product so that people would be willing to try them at least, right? And then let the product stand on its own.
Right.
It's like Willie said, it's easy to sell one bottle. It's to sell the second bottle. That's the trick.
Right.
But knowing so far what we've experienced so far, the bottles will sell themselves. You just have to get the first bottle in people's hands, which is what I'm hoping the show will do. But I mean, any like this rye product, I feel like if I was a young guy, if I was 25 instead of 54, I would be like, I'm not buying rye whiskey. Why would I buy that? So but there's got to be a way to get people to say, I'm willing to support the craft distiller. I want to make my purchases more intentionally, rather than just being lazy and going down to the grocery store and buying the cheapest bottle of bourbon I can find. And, because, well, I mean, budgets aside, right? Let's assume that they have the option to pick between one or the other. Like, how do you get them to choose a Tobacco Root Rye over?
You can get them to watch the show. That might be number one. I don't know. So that's all marketing, I think it's good. So even if I didn't work there, I would look for it on the shelf at the liquor store. And I like spirits. I like to drink spirits. I like beer. I like good beer. I don't dabble in the Bud Lights, but so I don't know how to answer that question. As a consumer, I go to the store and I look to see if there's something that in the style that I want, bourbon, rye, whatever, single malt. And then I'll try something that I haven't tried before. And then if I don't like it, then it generally goes to somebody else. Right? That's kind of how I operate as a consumer.
Sure.
One thing I'll say that is funny, has been funny for me. How do you get people to paradigm shift? And so, we're all stuck in our own, this is what kind of drinker I am. And so I was guilty of this. I was a bourbon drinker, right? And then when I started tasting these and being like, I'm usually drawn to the vanilla note in bourbon, which isn't necessarily there, but I really like that spice note. What is it? And you were like, rye. And all of a sudden, I'm a person who would have always walked past a bottle of rye and been like, I'm not a rye drinker. I don't know what that is, but I don't think I'm it. And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, darn, I'm a rye drinker.
Well, I think that happened socially.
Right.
You met someone that said, hey, give this a try. Or, hey, someone who knew enough about the product to be like, okay, those spicy notes are coming from the rye that we use.
Right.
The 200 pounds of rye in that grain bill.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I think is interesting about, anytime we're talking about whiskey, wealth, and freedom, right? All of the different things, everybody tends to be stuck in their paradigms of whatever it is they're doing, whether it just is they're going and constantly buying the alcohol they've always bought because it's what they do, or whatever, daddy drank Jack Daniels, that's what I drink. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, those kinds of things of we miss out on so much if at some point in our lives we don't start going, I'm going to see what else is out there.
Part of that's marketing, right? Like the cool commercial or the cool billboard or whatever,
So, Chris, you're the young man at the table. So, what are your thoughts? What are your suggestions or recommendations on how to get more of this wonderful product in people's hands, especially your generation?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, because even as we were talking, I already gave myself away and said, I'm usually mixing it with something, and so it's like it's nice to come into a product. The only other one that I've really ever done that in my life with was a Pendleton. Mm-hmm. It was like something that I drank straight, and I was like, oh, this is actually. It does taste good, but I don't know what the, where do you level up? Because it feels like it's a leveling up thing or a maturing thing to where you care about the flavor. It's not just about the night's where the night's going to go. It's about you want to have a nice conversation with someone and sit and have a nice quality drink. So yeah, I don't know. I do think that partially comes with age. Like I think that when you get relaxed somewhere and you're just sitting and talking with someone is different than the rave atmosphere, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
So I think it's a maturing thing. So I don't know I don't know if there's a mature gun that we could work on to zap people with.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
When you're ready, just do it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the last thing it's a great conversation, and but it's because it is the Whiskey Wealth and Freedom show. We'll try to mix up the content a little bit. But thank you, Glenn, for sharing that. And if anything else comes into mind that you want to share about the product while you're here, please pipe up. The other thing I would mention is that for everybody that's watching that does want to try the trio for the quarter, for the first quarter of 2026, you can go either to Willie's Distillery website directly and purchase the product using the promo code TREASURE, and you can get free shipping. If you get all 3 bottles because you want to try all 3 at once. Well, not at one time, but but if you want to have them in your possession all at once, you can get free shipping on the product. Or you can go to treasurestateadvisors.com to the show page, and I've got them promoted on that page as well. Just make sure that you use Treasure, and you'll get the discount on the shipping. Plus, you can purchase any of Willie's Distilleries merchandise for 15% off anything. And they have a lot of good stuff, great hats and shirts and what are those, hoodies, sweatshirts, sweaties. You can tell I don't wear them. You like what you have.
And really good syrup and coffee.
And coffee beans
things, yeah.
and spice rubs and all kinds. Glencairn glasses.
Right.
Yeah. We should have used these today, but I was thinking I was going to save these for.
Well, I don't know how you fit the ice in them.
I actually do have a question.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of different shapes and sizes of glasses.
Yeah.
What does it like? That would be a question for you. Is like, what is there? I mean, there must be a difference, I think, but do you have to be such a sophisticated drinker to even know the difference, or is it a marketing
How
thing?
cool do you want to look?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
So there is
really
some
cool. I
saying
wanna look
about
really
getting
cool.
getting that focus, like if you're really into the nose and sniffing things,
That glass
that
would be
narrowed, that kind of focuses the scent. If you've seen, there's different pints for different styles of beers.
So then, Glenn,
Right.
are you supposed to hold the glass this way? When you drink?
Whatever way you want to hold it.
Well, that's for the brandy because you want brandy to be warm, and so your hand warms
I
the
wouldn't
glass.
say hold your So the one thing I will geek out a little bit about: don't hold your glass in your hand. It warms it up,
go
right?
mouth first.
Right, put it down between drinks, right? That warms it up, right?
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
That would be the only thing that I would add to that. But otherwise, it's how cool you want to look, right?
I'm always trying to max my cool. So.
Right. I mean, beer. There's like I said, there's the different pint glasses.
You're right. Yeah.
Some of that you could say, creates nose feel and creates mouth feel when you drink it. Whatever, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are nice for anything you want to drink neat.
Right.
Because you just
Yeah.
a smaller glass is
Right.
perfectly fine for that.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just have the alcohol in there.
That's why we didn't pour in those, because when we did the Million Acre Bourbon show,
We did them in
we
these.
did them in those because that you definitely want to drink neat. If you want to try it, if you finish that, Chris, you want to switch. Grab one of these glasses and grab the Million Acre. This is crazy good bourbon. They're all good, but that's
Yeah, I was eyeing this one too. the
honey moonshine.
moonshine. Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Now I gotta run back to Montana. I had my